Hello guys, so in this video we're going to discuss if Snowflake is really a competitor to Palantir and if they're eating Palantir's lunch. As a Palantir investor, should we be worried about Snowflake? So this is going to be an exciting video. I was really surprised at the findings. As always guys, please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel. And if you want to go further and support the channel, please check out the first link in the description box below, which takes you to our Patreon, where you can support the channel from $5 a month and get direct access to me and to all the valuations that we use on this channel. So first of all, it's not easy to compare these two companies. And the best way that I can think to compare them is Snowflake is a data warehouse solution first, and then they started offering analytics tools that compete with Palantir Foundry. Palantir Foundry is a data analytics tool. And obviously, to use a data analytics tool, you have to store your data somewhere. And I believe that Palantir has their own solution to it, but you're welcome to use a third-party solution like Snowflake or like AWS or Microsoft Azure. So they are not direct competitors. It's like one started here and is offering the other's product, and Snowflake started here and is going into Palantir's offerings a little bit. So now there is a lot of drama in YouTube land right now because Palantir had a not so great quarter and it seems like that their growth is slowing, whereas Snowflake has incredible growth, incredible retention. You can see 84% year over year growth, 174 net revenue retention. And obviously it seems like it's going fantastic for them and Palantir is going like shit. So many people have been criticizing Alex Carr, wanting him fired and gone. And let's see if we can compare these companies apples to apples, and maybe we'll find something interesting. To make this an apples to apples comparison, we have to understand that Palantir is almost like two companies because they serve the US government section, and that product is a very old product. I believe they were launched in 2003, so they would be 19 years old at this point. And Foundry, which is a product that services the commercial customers, is only 5 years old. Now, Snowflake is only servicing commercial customers, and they are a company that was launched in July 2012, so they would be a little bit more than 10 years at this point. So I think that to make the best comparison, we have to compare the Palantir commercial as opposed to Snowflake. So Snowflake is twice the age as Palantir. And I want to go through first, this is Palantir's latest earnings. And let's find some interesting data points and then let's see what Snowflake has for similar data points. So you can see here that revenue grew to 473 million, but obviously this is the government and the commercial lumped together. So we are only interested in what is the commercial, and it's not always going to be easy because these guys report differently. So let's see what we can find. And you're going to find that as soon as you take away the government, which has been very stagnant, the commercial part of Palantir is doing extremely well. Here, this is a chart that is a bit closer because it's US revenue growth, but it's still US government and commercial together. So here is something interesting. So here we have total commercial revenue growth. They reached 210 million from 144 million. And that is a 46% year over year growth. So we can compare it with an 84% year over year growth at Snowflake, which we can see is extremely good for Snowflake. Is a 46% growth bad for Palantir? I wouldn't say that it's bad. Then they have this, we ended Q2 with a net dollar retention of 119%. And if we go back to Snowflake, they have a net retention of 174%. So two things to consider here. I have dabbled into a subscription business before, and just retaining customers for more than a year is insanely hard for any business. So even if you would have 100% net retention rate, it would be a feat of its own. So for example, Snowflake could fire all their salespeople and they would be still growing 74% just from the existing customers spending more the next year. Again, on paper, it seems like Snowflake's 174 net retention revenue is way better than Palantir's, but you have to think about one thing. Palantir's average customer spends about $8 million with Palantir. So that is a very, very high base. So having a 120% net retention rate on 8 million is fantastic. However, Snowflake, they have 6,000 customers, which means that the average customer spends much less. In fact, they actually have a separate chart that takes out how much the biggest customers are paying. Let me see if I can find it for you. So here you can see that the total customers is grown from 4,500 to 6,300. And exactly right next to it, the customers over 1 million grew 98% from 100. So they only have 206 customers that spend more than $1 million with them. So that means that they have 6,100 customers that spend less than $1 million a year. And what I'm trying to say is it's very, very, very easy to grow that small base into a much bigger number. So I don't think it's fully fair to compare the Palantir net retention to the Snowflake net retention. I would say that both numbers are crazy fantastic and are showing very serious customer traction. So here's another thing, again, because these companies report differently. Palantir is reporting that they grew their customer numbers to 304 customers from 169 a year ago, and that is an 80% increase. So that's a very, very, very nice increase. I would guess that most of it is commercial customers. And if we look at Snowflake, again, this is the only thing that we can compare to because every customer with Palantir spends way more money than the customers at Snowflake. So that is a very similar growth. Snowflake is still doing better here. Palantir was at 80%. They were at 98%. Palantir, unfortunately, doesn't have a breakdown of this number, which is the Forbes Global 2000 customers. Snowflake seems to have a 25% penetration rate to 506 customers, and that's crazy good for them. So they're doing very, very good at this front. Here, commercial count. So they did break it down, but they didn't break down the percent increase. Oh, wow. You can see here that the percent increase is way more than 100%. So they're actually adding customers faster than Snowflake in the expensive category. 203 divided by 79. That's a 156% increase. Wow. So they way beat Snowflake at this point. And here, this is exactly what I meant, that the average revenue per the top 20 customers is 39 million. So you can see that Palantir is selling something that is a much higher value proposition to customers, and the customers pay way more than the Snowflake customers, and they're still growing this base 17% year over year. That is really, really, really something. A few last that I want to point out. So it took Palantir 5 years to get to 203 commercial customers, again, that spend a lot of money with them. And if you look at Snowflake, for them to get to 206, it took them 10 years. Again, this total customers, so the 6,100 is not when you subtract the big customers from the total customers. Palantir is obviously not going after this customer base. So if you look at this, then it took Palantir 5 years to get to the same number, whereas it took Snowflake 10 years to get to the same number. And when you look at these big paying customers, Palantir had a much higher growth. It was, 156%. So Palantir is doing surprisingly better than this. But here comes the biggest surprise. So you have to look at the employee count. So the employee count of Snowflake is 4,459. And out of those employees, 2,247 is working in sales and marketing. So that means that 50% of the company is working on sales and marketing to get to the same results as Palantir got in half the time. Again, I'm trying to make it as apples to apples as possible. I know that there's 6,100 other way smaller paying customers. It would be very interesting to see how much those customers pay versus the 200 biggest customers, because I wouldn't be surprised if those 200 customers are like 80% of Snowflake's revenue. I might be completely wrong on this, but I just wouldn't be surprised. So in the last earnings call, Alex Karp said that they had 180 salespeople. I had a bit of a hard time finding their total employees, but the Palantir total employees is 3,269 as of June 2022. Now, Alex Karp on the earnings call said that they have about 180 salespeople, which is 5%, not 50%, 5% of the workforce. And out of those 180, 30 salespeople were done with the whole company training. So that means that they had trained salespeople of 1% of the company's workforce. And this 1% was the one that is getting all these results. So this is very shocking for me, because when I honestly was a little bit worried and I wanted to see what Palantir's competition is doing. But when I look at this, I would say that they're doing quite well on sales. They are obviously pursuing different kind of strategies, different kind of go-to-market strategies. But what I can see is Palantir is a much leaner organization. They get much higher revenue per customer. And on the big fish customers that really matter, they got to the same point as Snowflake, and it took them half the time and 1/10 of the Salesforce, which is nuts. So let me know what you think. Let me know if this was surprising to you. Let me know if you're scared for Palantir sales and what you think they should do. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.